Hey friends and music makers, a very warm welcome back to the channel. Today we are diving into the world of dub techno. We'll be creating a track from scratch in the style of basic channel and rhythm and sound using only stock Ableton Live devices and effects. Join me as we explore the key elements that define this genre, and we'll break down the process step by step, giving you the tools to craft those signature soundscapes and minimalist kind of rhythms. As always, feel free to drop your questions in the chat and we'll learn and discover new things together. My goal is to help you here level up your music production skills and unlock your creative potential. So without further ado, let's dive in and start crafting some dub techno. Just going to move a couple of things out the way. I hope you're doing great. By the way, feel free as always to say hello in the chat and drop any questions there if you have any as we go, and I'll do my best to answer them. A quick one, let's have a look at a quick slide and then we'll jump straight into some music. So just jumping over to this quick slide, I often do polls both on YouTube and some of my other social channels like Instagram or LinkedIn, and ask my audience and community, that's you guys and girls, some questions so I can get kind of a feel for how I can best help you on this channel. So the most recent one I asked was that I'd appreciate your help, and I was thinking about ideas for videos and posts and things like that, and I asked, what part of the music production process do you struggle with the most? And it's always interesting with doing these polls to see what the results are, and looking like it's clear in front and ahead there is making your track sound professional. So what I would like to ask, building on top of that, is if you are here now or later on you're watching this stream back, could you let me know in the comments a little bit more detail on that? Because obviously on these polls I can only write so many words about what I'd like to know. So okay, making your track sound professional, is that a mixing? How do you see you need to improve professionally? How do you feel that your track isn't as professional as you would like it to be? That's what I'd really like to know. Is it a mixing thing, do you think? Is it your ideas from the start, the sounds and samples you're choosing? If we can dig into that, that would be super helpful. And obviously all those topics, future videos, future posts, 100% yes. Today, as I said, we're going to make some music, we're going to make some dub techno. That can help us a lot, picking genres, learning what's special about those genres and what makes that genre tick. So that's kind of what we're doing today. But as I said, if you can help me out with elaborating on that, that would be amazing. The poll is still on my community tab in YouTube. It's going to stay open, so feel free to keep adding in there your thoughts on that, and it helps me out a lot of how to focus the channel, and obviously hopefully it helps you guys and girls out as well. All right, so let's get back to Ableton Live. Let's have a quick listen to something here while I check my levels. Okay, we got a little issue there with the sound. Let's fix that. So we will need to visit briefly somewhere here. Just bear with me a sec. So we want that, and we want to check our properties. Okay, so let's try that again. That's why we do a test. Very strange. Let's try that again. Maybe if someone could let me know, are you getting a nasty sort of, I understand where the problem is. Sorry, my bad, it's in here. So for sure you are hearing the same as me, I would imagine. So let's fix that. There we go. Now we should be good, as otherwise we've got not only dub techno, but we've got a more or less an echo techno. All right, so let's have a listen to this bit of audio now. Hopefully hopefully that should be all systems normal. Someone could let me know in the chat, that would be amazing. If you're there in the chat right now or you're in the stream with me, I'm just doing that to test that everything's working fine. All looks good this end. So what you're listening to there is just a little bit of a feel for what we're going to be doing today. That was just a little idea I was messing around with earlier, and as I said, we're using it to test the levels here. But that's kind of got some of the techniques that we're going to be looking at today. So let's start from scratch here. Let's get a brand new project open and we'll get cooking. So new live set. Right, there we go. Lovely stuff. So I'm just going to put one small track into here from the user library. It just reminds me of things to potentially look at as we go and unpack for both you and for me. So little reminders there. So let's say we start with a tempo here. Maybe we'll go for 128 or 130, something around there, let's say. And we'll start by building, I think, our kick and bass combination, so we can get straight into an empty MIDI track. Pop in just a nice 4 on the floor pattern for a second. Now we could use sort of something a bit kind of analog-y here, sort of a sample perhaps, but maybe we'll just get rolling with the drum instrument, the drum synth, which if you've followed my channel a little bit, I use this one a lot just to get a kick going. It's nice and easy. We can drop that straight on and get a kick rolling, and we can play around a bit already with the envelope and decay and also the pitch in a moment. So we just want a simple kick pattern like that for the moment. Most of the action's going to happen in the bass line, so let's say we duplicate that over a bit. So let's open up this tab. We probably won't go for ghost kicks or anything at the moment because I think we can do that in our synth. And let's say synth-wise, well, we could have a wavetable here perhaps. I think I'm going to use mainly today drift and wavetable. So let's have a wavetable here. And let's start again with a little bit of a pattern or two in here. Perhaps we'll just have something a little bit simple to start with. So instead of ghost kicks, we're going to use the kind of bass line to do our action of groove with the kick, so they're having a conversation. Let's randomize the velocity of these notes a little bit. Don't need too much. Great. Let's get over to our synth. Let's maybe have a triangle. So we've got a bit of harmonics in here. Let's maybe try the sub oscillator as well. So we'll make it quite short, so also with the notes we could play around with the note lengths a little bit. So if we highlight our kick pattern, that's the interaction at the moment between the two, right? So let's say we come to the bass for a second. You can hear what happens if we shorten the notes, or but also that is working in combination with whatever our release is doing on the synth here, which is a great way to sort of make sure you understand how these two are playing off each other, and so they're fitting in around each other. If we have a long release on our ADSR of the amp here, of the wavetable, then the notes could be much shorter, but the release of the synth is carrying on and maybe even overlapping the attack of the kick. So if we make a long release, everything starts to get a bit messy. If we have a very short release, the note lengths are having a bit more say about where the tail of the amp envelope is. And also if we have a filter envelope, that will be in the mix as well. All right, let's just look at this, listen to the sound for a second a bit. It's not doing a whole lot, which I don't really want it to do. Just have a little bit of sub oscillator. We're in mono, so we're all good there. Maybe let's bring our filter down. And we can have a little bit of filter envelope. Can also have a bit of drive in the filter. Yeah, I don't want too much character. I want this kind of pretty muted, pretty neutral. So what we might have is just a little bit of movement between the triangle and the saw, and we can do that with the wavetable, and we'll move this position just a little bit in here. Could try glide, but we don't have any overlapping notes, so okay, maybe we dirty this synth up a little bit. It's nice, just a little bit of noise. I'll boost that, but hopefully you've got the headphones where you can actually kind of hear that, so you're aware of what that noise has done. All right, let's move on a bit. Let's go for a closed hi-hat, and let's have a sample. Let's try something here. Let's have 3 notes like this. And let's try a little ramp on those. Something like that. And then we'll loop that. Bring down the volume. Shorten the start point a bit. Nice. Let's have a bit of erosion on that as well, on our hi-hat. Come back to the bass for a second. give it a little bit of saturation. Going to put an auto filter after that as well. Or actually, we might change that to an EQ. So there's plenty of adjustment here. We can make that bass sound all sorts of different ways and automate lots of things. We just kind of want it quite muted in the back and a bit sort of subby was the idea here, rather than it being bright and really shiny and plucky and giving too much. And it's kind of fitting nicely around the kicks, right? And if we come back to the kick for a second, let's tighten that up. Hi Adrian, muy buenas tardes, good afternoon. Nice to see you here. Dub Techno on the menu today. We're just getting a groove and a bass line going at the moment. Nothing too crazy yet. The most important thing about Dub Techno in a moment is going to be the interaction in the chords and the instruments that we choose, but we want kind of a nice kind of solid bass and groove to get ourselves sort of started here. And we also should probably pick a scale here, which would mean that, you know, we could get some of these things into a key. At the moment, I've just sort of, we're running with everything kind of in C, which is okay. I mean, the kick isn't in C, it's actually in F down here. So I think we should have a minor scale. So let's do that. And let's maybe have something like F minor. And then this kick actually would be already in scale. And our C also is in scale. It happens to be in F minor. So if we put the scale on here, it's in that scale. And it's the, let me just check, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's the fifth. So, or the fourth, should I say? Yeah, so it's the fourth note of the scale that the bass is sitting on at the moment. So we can maybe, now that we've got a scale, kind of tweak that a little bit. Let's have a listen. Yeah, I quite like it. Perhaps at G. Just doing that, it's helping the attack of the kick a little bit. Let's think about that. Okay, let's get something else in. Let's have a clap. Picking the fifth degree would make it sourceless. Yeah, it wouldn't really sort of, I think for the bass line with the kick, we've got, they're actually quite close together at the moment. So the kick is technically here. So they're actually only apart by, if we unfold or take away the scale, we've just got a tone in between or two keys, right? So they're quite close together, but as they're playing independent of each other, like so, we're actually in pretty good shape, because this is kind of like having a conversation with each other, which is what we're doing there. So yes, I think the fifth would be a bit wasted down in here. It sounded a bit more like we'd be going in the direction of sort of progressive house or something like that, which is, yeah, not really the idea here today. So let's grab a clap. Maybe this one. Again, we're just going to play around with the, want it really short, tight. Almost like it's not there, but it is. And we're sort of sound designing as we're going here, so we're going to keep on doing a little processing as we go as well. All right, sounds good. Let's maybe have a little bit of tiny movement on this. We can actually do it in the device itself, so we can come into the simpler down here, and let's give it a little bit of random panning here. Just giving it a very subtle bit of movement. Similarly with the closed hi-hat, we might try and get a bit of movement into that as well. Let's try a phaser on that. Very small amount. Another trick we could try actually with the hi-hats, which can be a good one. Let's just bring the ADSR in a bit. And we'll use a random LFO here. Not the saw down, random. And we're going to put that on the volume here. I'll make it extreme for a second, so you can hear what happens. Right, so if we have that, it's kind of working like velocity. It's bringing the hits of randomizing the hits of the hi-hat or the notes and moving the volume up and down as it plays. So it's a nice way to get like a feeling of live playing and velocity by putting this random LFO shape here over the volume. We're getting a random waveform moving the volume, and the closed hi-hats open and closed a bit, or like soft and hard, by bringing that volume up and down with a random shape. So it's a nice way to bring a bit more feeling into your hi-hat. So I'm going to back it off, but hopefully you can hear that. I'm just going to pop a limiter on the master track, so that will help a little bit. Let's boost up our YouTube volume a little bit. Maybe somewhere up around there. We'll see how that goes. But yes, so now I'm going to back this off. So it's a bit more subtle. We can also play around with the speed of that. If you want it more rhythmic, you can actually put it in note sync. and then all those little changes happen exactly every 8th note. But I quite like it in hertz because then it's in between the note sync. And you can play around with it to get the kind of rhythm and feel you're looking for. So it's just more vibey. It's already got velocity in here, this little ramp that I did. Let's also try a little trick here. We'll just extend this out to a longer loop. Let's make it 2 bars. We'll take away that 1 beat, extend it out. And we're going to copy this out. And then maybe at the very end here, we'll just try out a little trick here. We'll have another little idea of another hi-hat that happens like that at the very end. We'll see what that sounds like. Nice. So we've got this kind of cool little fill at the end now. So I think with Dub Techno, we're not going to have too many elements here, but we want our elements to work really well together and create this sense of kind of interest, because we're not going to be filling up this track with lots and lots of parts and all sorts of different sounds. It's built around sort of a groove and a nice sort of vibe and feeling, a little bit analog, a bit crunchy, a bit dirty, lots of kind of minimal details. So what I was speaking about a bit earlier about picking some genres that you can learn from by making all sorts of music, what we can learn from doing sort of dub techno, minimal house and minimal techno, is how to play around with not so many elements and make them sit together well and make them be interesting and vary enough and keep you on your toes and keep your listener in the game. So this is a good exercise with this particular genre here. Just going to check one thing quickly here and then we're back into it. By the way, if you're here in the live stream, do feel free to say hello and drop a hello. Let us know where you're tuned in and listening from. And if you've got any questions about dub techno or related, then feel free to drop them in the chat. Be great to hear from you. I hope you're having an awesome weekend. All right, let's crack on. I still feel like the sample here is maybe not the best. So let me just try again a few more samples. It's not quite the right sample for me. So let's just mute it. Yes, so I need to search up here hi-hat. And I want closed, so I'm going to have to put that in front. What I might do is I'll substitute this, even though I've done a bit of work in here. We'll fix that in a second. I could swap it out, but I've got a rack or two where I've got some different hats in it, so I'm just going to try that instead, and then we'll come back and we'll just apply that random LFO and the things I've done. But yeah, I'm just going to go to a different selection of hats is my idea here. So somewhere in here I've got a rack or two where I've put a bunch of closed hi-hats, and there's for sure probably one in there. All right, so where are we? Up here. Yeah, I like that one. So what we're going to do in that case, it's number 45. This one here. So let's copy that. Pop away the rack. Or maybe not just yet. Let's try that again. Can also do it this way. Okay, going to play again. We could also ungroup if we want, or we can also drag this over here. Well, there's always a way to get around something that doesn't work the way you hoped it to the first time around. There we go. Now we're cooking. So we're over here. We've got the new hat. Right, now let's sort out the pitch of it and put it up on C3 so we put it in its original pitch. Then we're going to make this one work again, how we had it before, which is on the right note. That's great. And then we're going to play around a little bit with the sample again here. Get our LFO back in action. Nice. All of this, it's subtle, but it makes a difference. That's how it would sound without the processing as well. It's quite dramatically different, right? Quick question. I don't want to derail the direction of the video. Go for it, Adrian. Feel free. I'm much happier with that hi-hat now, and it's pretty important in this kind of track because, as I said, there's not too many elements here, and so this having a really nice solid techno drum sort of groove and bass line here is important. So Adrian, I'm just going to read quickly in the comments here. Adrian very politely asked, he didn't want to derail the video. That's fine, we're only half an hour in or so, so all good. I have been using splice stacks for inspiration, but I've not tried to publish anything created with splice samples. It seems that there's high chances of getting copyright strikes. Do you use samples from any provider, or do you create? Mainly, these days I make a lot of things from scratch, but I do have a lot of sample libraries for things like these drum sounds that I'm using here. So, and I think particularly on YouTube, I don't think everyone wants me to see me making a hi-hat from scratch. As it is, we're already kind of quite slow to get as far as we've got, but trying to make a really nice solid groove here. To answer your question, so I don't really use splice or samples from there, but yes, I think you have to be a little bit careful these days with getting a copyright strike from releasing something that have splice samples. I know they have in the licensing that the license, you'd want to look into that, but I'm pretty sure in the licensing of splice samples, there's the approval for others to use the same sample. No one can buy it and say it's completely only solely mine, but you might find that YouTube or other platforms don't agree with you when it comes, don't agree with splice on that front, and then you might have a copyright issue. I think with drum sounds and kicks and hi-hats and snares and claps, I wouldn't see there'd be too much trouble in terms of copyright strikes, as it's very common sort of sound. But I think if it's a vocal or a synth or a bass instrument or something like that, or a guitar or something that's really an incredible sample, yes, you could run into a conflict with someone else using the same sample, and then they've released the track, and as I said, Splice gives you permission, you to use it, me to use it, someone else, but unfortunately YouTube doesn't understand that, and that's where you might start to get an issue, right? So I hope that helps. There are some very cool sites like Tracklib, which has a lot of samples on it where you actually pay for licensing and clear that, so you absolutely have no issues like that. You're actually paying to have the sample cleared and make sure that you can use it. So hopefully that helps you a little bit with that. But in my case, yes, I'm using some samples from sample libraries, sample packs that I've collected over about 20 years, and then I make my own sounds, and it's mainly those two that I'm working with, nothing really from Splice myself. So we've got a basic groove. Let's now get stuck into the musical side of things today, and we're going to get stuck in here. We're going to be using plenty of reverb and delay and noise and all those kind of good things. So let's say we open up a MIDI clip. We're in F minor. Let's turn on our scale for a second, and let's have an F minor chord. Or actually what we could do, let's maybe make a couple of patterns, but we could perhaps just have for the moment a note, and I'll explain why in a second. Let's say it's something like that for a moment, and we'll give it a little bit of randomization. Actually, we'll try that again because I didn't have all the notes together. That will help. Okay, something a little subtle like so. And then wavetable or drift. So maybe we make our first musical part with the drift. As I think when you're making these kind of tracks, good to hear that helped, Adrian, my pleasure. When you're making these kind of tracks, or in my view here, I'm trying to go for a little bit of a analog, crunchy kind of organic textural feel, as opposed to super clean, pristine and digital, if that makes sense. That's not kind of what I'm aiming for here. I'm thinking dub techno. There's a lovely kind of analog, crunchy kind of, yeah, more organic sort of sound. So all we're doing at the moment is just messing around with rhythm here for a second. So this could be a sequence pattern on this track, but what we're going to do now is, rather than we can play chords on the keyboard in front here, we could turn those into chords. We could also use, what's the one I'm looking for in here? We could also go and use the tool in here, which is stacks, and we could make chords that way. But I'm just looking for a bit of a rhythm for a second. And what I'm going to do to make my chords here is I'm going to use Ableton's Chord MIDI device. And I've got lots and lots of different chords to choose from here. Some of them I've made along the way, and some of these will be default to your Ableton Live, and some of these are definitely ones that I've kind of created myself. And this is a great way, if you're not a musician or a keyboard player, and you're familiar with playing chords, you can kind of just worry about playing either one note on your keyboard or programming in this case, a single note, and then you can start to turn those notes into a chord. So that's kind of the idea here. And I think I've got this dope jazzy one could be interesting. So let's have a listen to what that sounds like. So I'm just going to work on the rhythm a bit. Also try other notes in the scale. So maybe the first chord is nice and deep. It's not quite on top of the bass. So there's all our bits so far, right? There's our bass down here. So if we spread it out further, it obviously does get further away from the bass line. But I like it there for the moment, so I'm going to stick with that. So it's a super nice way to come up with a chord, right? Because literally, if we were starting with this from scratch, we could turn this off, and it has some great features, the chord device in 12. It's updated as well. It has strum over here. It also has the possibility to add chants to how often some of these intervals happen, and literally you can make as many of these as you like trying out. So if we were just going for a standard triad here, we would just go +3 for a minor third, and then +7, and there we have a minor triad, and we still just have our single notes here playing the drift, and now we've turned them into the minor triad. And that actually might be better because I kind of like that. It's more simpler. And then if, you know, we wanted to add another interval, we could. And you could come here, and as you can see, you can come here and say, okay, the chance of this interval 3 happening, we make it a lot less. So it'll only happen every now and then. Let's make it even lower. Pretty cool, right? Make it moody, keep it dubby. I think 5 down here, which is the... And then we can also have a bit of strum, which is going to offset all the notes in the chord a little bit. All in the chord device. And it's got another super sick feature up at the top here, which is learn. And so again, if you were to get another chord device here and pop it in here and you turn on learn, you can now go and play on your keyboard. I would need to turn mine on, and it will learn that chord you're playing and move the intervals for you, right? So if you, let's move these along a little bit. I've interrupted myself here, but you know, if I now play, let's just make sure we've got everything working here. So I've just played a chord on my keyboard, and it's remembered the intervals of what I've just played. And if you want to, if you're not, again, too familiar with that, you can also use the MIDI monitor. Love this little device here. And this you can put on this track, for example. Let's turn off all that stuff over here. Blank Poster Music, good afternoon. I'm very well. I hope you're good as well. I did have a listen to the track that you shared at the very end of last week's stream. I don't want to derail where we're at the moment, but if I don't talk a lot about it today, I definitely will at some point, and I'll let you know. But I have had a listen, and I do think I understand what it is that you were trying to understand about that synth. So let's see how we go. As I said, today we're making Dub Techno, we're into this track, and we're breaking down a few things here, but at some point I will try and assist you with what you asked and give you a few pointers on what I think it is that is making that synth sound the way it does, and that's what you asked about. So bear with me on that. So just coming back to this chord device, if we're here, as you can see, you can play with the MIDI monitor device and see what chord you're playing over there. And then you can ask it to learn, right? So if you were trying to make a specific chord first, you could be doing that. So there's E minor, and we could then say learn that, and therefore it straight away does the learning and the shifts of the intervals, which is really quite a useful little tool. So this chord device, really great for getting something going without needing to be a musician and a keyboard player. And as you can see, there's lots and lots of, coming back to it, presets. Like I said, some of these I've added myself and created and saved in there, so I've got a few more perhaps than you would see in your standard Ableton user, you know, your MIDI effect library. But as you can see, you can make them very easily and save them. We're going to go back actually to the one that I was just using. This one, I think it is. We'll get rid of the other one because I liked kind of the result of this one. And now we're going to work on the synth sound a bit, the drift. So I'm going to go to the amp envelope. filter envelope on it, make it really kind of quite sharp. Let's try out some different waveforms in oscillator 1. That's nice. So we're vibing a bit there, I think. Now let's look at our filter envelope a bit. So I've added the envelope down here, right? So if we look at the envelope, here is the amount of envelope 2, this envelope here, that's being applied to the filter. So I've closed the filter completely off and I've got 100% envelope applied. If I put that to 0, we won't hear really music at all. Everything's cut away completely. So I'm using an envelope here to sort of open and close this filter from completely closed, but it's still very tight to do with the shape of this. So if we change that, that's changing how that sounds, right? But it's the filter envelope, this is in this case envelope 2 that's applied to the filter, that's now making it sound completely different to how it did a moment ago. So we can shape that. Let's turn our synth into mono. Really different, right? Let's go back to poly, because we're playing chords in this case. We're not, that would be good on the bass line, but we're in chords. Just raw at the moment. All right, so let's get after this chord, some processing happening. So we're going to want to filter. Oh, wrong device. For the moment, we'll switch that off because we're going to do a little bit of action before that. Let's try a filter delay. Just going to bring the volume down a bit on these. They're quite pumped up, so then I can get my track volume back a bit. So we might change how we're going to do this. Do that with an EQ instead. Give us a little bit more flexibility. So if you're ever looking for, I'm sort of moving along here as I go, but if you're ever looking for a bandpass filter that has a lot more flexibility to it. So what I just did there was essentially I'm making my own custom bandpass filter here using an EQ8 instead. So it's giving me all this sort of adjustability here that's very, very different to what I have if I have the bandpass filter in the auto filter Ableton. All I can really do here is I can go between 12 and 24 dB, so I can change my curve. 12 lets more sound through underneath, and I can boost the resonance if I wish, but you can see this looks a lot different, right? It's giving me a lot more control. We could also here have a low cut and then a high cut if we wish, but we can also kind of build our own custom bandpass by just using an EQ8 and using the low and high cut in there and playing around with the Q and the frequency, and you can kind of create your own, very much a custom kind of bandpass there. All right, so quite different and quite effective, I think. So what we might also do is get a bit of movement on that. So let's have an LFO. And let's map that to this high cut effectively. And then we're going to obviously not have it anywhere near as wild as that. So we need to kind of bring the depth right down. Change the offset, so we're going to open it back out. And then we're going to slow that down. That's going to give us this really nice movement. So I think what I might do is also have an LFO on this shape, but inside of the drift. So we're going to modulate this shape a little bit of oscillator 1. So we need to sort of dig in here a little bit and have a look for it on our list. So we're sort of looking for envelope, or what are we going to use to modulate? So we're going to use LFO. And where are we going to send that LFO? We're going to send it to oscillator 1 shape. At the moment you can see the amount would be 80% here if we leave that, or 100%, or we can bring that down. So let's say we leave it at the default for a second. Then we go to our LFO and see what's going on there. So we've got a sine wave moving this a little bit. And you can see I'm making it extreme so you can kind of see it's happening, right? This is down here giving us the visual that this is now being modulated by that LFO. So if I back that off, you can see how subtle it is down here. And if we go in here and we bring this right down, you see it's just becoming just a little bit. And all of that's kind of bringing this sound to life, right? It's giving it vibe that it didn't have before. We could also have, we've got the envelope on this frequency down here and it's 100% applied. So that's quite nice, just backing it off a little bit. So this is pretty important to Dub Techno, right? This sound, this kind of vibey chord. That's all we've got going on at the moment. Blank Poster Music, I'm loving the live session. Awesome, mate. I'm glad you're enjoying it. So I hope the others, those of you who are also tuned in, are enjoying it as well. It's good to hear. So, you know, here we've just got a groove and some drums, and Dub Techno, it's going to be all about this. And it's just a fairly simple pattern here that we use in the chord device and the drift, and we're getting this kind of vibe out of it, right? And we got lots and lots of possibilities to change things around. So I was thinking to put a little bit of LFO on here, right? So we can do that kind of directly down here. We can go down into mod down here. Actually, sorry, that would be modulating the amount of the LFO. We can go back here, or what we can do, I'm not using my brain properly here, we can come down here and say LFO. That's already tied to the filter, so we've got two options of modulating it down here, and now I've put the LFO there. So now this is also now moving this, but of course, because we're doing that, the rate and amount here is affecting how quickly that's opening, right? It's the same that we're using here, but I'd kind of like to slow it down. So in that case, I've got an option. I could use an LFO like I did over here. In fact, I could probably even use this one. So let's try that. We're gonna leave this LFO off here and leave that to be the amount and the rate affecting the shape. And we're going to use a slower sort of sine wave here just to move this a little bit. So let's try that. We'll try this one here, mapping it over onto here. So now you can see it moving it here, and then we can bring that down again. We can kind of use the range here. Close it right down, just so we got a little bit there. So we're kind of using this LFO now, page 1 and page 2 of it, to move the filter of the drift, and also it's affecting our EQ over here, right? But again, whatever we've got it set up to do over in here, it's kind of affecting those two things the same. So if we don't want that, we could just use another LFO. We got no problem at all whatsoever. Just checking in with the chat for a quick sec. Blank poster music. I never understand when anyone refers to LFO, like what does it actually do, lol? I've heard it a billion times. Yes, low frequency oscillator. So the best way to explain it, blank poster music, it's an oscillator, the same as sine wave, sawtooth or triangle. It's an oscillator, but it's an oscillator we don't hear, but because it creates a waveform, we can use that waveform, the same as I said, let's just say we pick on a sine wave. That's a type of waveform that we can hear if it's an oscillator in our synth that we're using to make a tone. But a low frequency oscillator can be a sine wave that's way lower than our hearing, but we can use that waveform then to move things with that shape of the waveform, and that's all it is. Low frequency oscillators are a waveform that we don't hear, but we use that waveform, random, triangle, and all the fun stuff to modulate things and get things moving around. I'm still not sure if I will keep this as the LFO to move that filter frequency, as we've got lots of choices and there's an envelope on it, but for now I'm going to roll with it. But I may use another LFO or separate it. We will see. Time will tell how I hear it. Great, happy to hear you got it. So now I'm just playing around with the release of the drift a little bit. There's lots of room to shape the sound. Yeah, I think one of the best descriptions of an LFO is it's like a spare pair of hands, right? Because whenever we use modulation, I've got a left hand and a right hand, but just think so I can use my mouse and something else. But if I have an LFO moving this and moving that, or an envelope moving this and moving that, it's like you're an octopus and you have 8 hands, right? So it's an extension of being able to move things around as many parameters and points as possible. So that's a very good thing with blank poster music. I have got a Discord, which I've been thinking a lot about, like I've set one up, but I was also sort of looking into other community platforms because I wasn't so completely sold on the Discord as the community area, right? So if you've got some other suggestions of community spaces that you hang out in on other platforms or see other people using, I'd love to hear those suggestions. As I said, I do have a Discord. At the moment it's private, otherwise I'd be sharing all day long and saying get you guys and girls into that space, because I'd love to do that. So as I said, I'm still thinking about it. Yeah, the octopus, well, Adrian Dantas said machine elves that turn the knobs at the rate that I want so I can focus something else. Exactly, but for me, my teacher taught me it was like having an extra pair of hands, and it is. It's like having elves, as Adrian said, or an octopus in the studio that can be moving. So whenever you're playing around with a synth, again, if we turn off, which I've shown in previous videos, the processing, of course it makes a big difference here, but we can get a lot of vibe out of the synth itself before we went into that processing. And I think that's always the best plan, is you try to get it moving and vibing and everything happening before you even start turning on effects. And we have looked at that before. Okay, I need another hi-hat here. So I think it's time to bring out the old 909 ride cymbals or open hi-hats or something like that. So let's see, let's go and get out of where I was for a moment, and let's get something like a 909 open or a ride. Do I want an open hi-hat? Do I want a ride? Let's try maybe a ride for a moment. And we can turn off scale here. We're just going to pop that on the off beats for a second. Try and open instead. Should put it to vote. I'm thinking ride. Maybe a bit cheesy. Yeah, I'm not gonna do that. It was an idea. Let's have a bit of movement panning wise on those. A little bit of left to right. You could do that in the simpler here with the random pan. Actually sounds quite nice, the long release. Okay, my friend Erosion, we want some grit. Try a bit of shimmer on here. Quite nice. Time to name this F to what it actually is, which is a 909 ride. These claps aren't too sexy. Let's see if we can kind of improve those a bit. This works really nicely for me. It's a great way to have a little tiny turn of phrase in a way that people are not always doing all the time, right? Fills are obvious. This is like a little layer of the same hat, an octave lower. This gives us a nice little bit of detail. Get the low cut out of this because it feels like it's got low in it. Yeah. All right, so let's now get our drift, which is chord 1, let's say. So that's the main Dub Techno part at the moment that's giving the dub feel. Bassline, as I said, quite basic, just a 1-note G0 at the moment with a bit of a muted sort of sound here. It's got a little bit of vibe happening within it. So what I'm thinking, chord 1, let's open a new MIDI track and let's print the chords. So let's bring the drift, route the chord 1 into here, switch it on to record, and let's grab what's going on in here because I'm using the chord device, we don't actually see the triads here, we just see the single notes that I'm playing. So let's capture the chords. Oh, oh man, that's a crash. Sorry, boys and girls. That's okay. We'll be back, and it's generally pretty quick, but I'll have to run through a few things. Must be something to do with the streaming software. As yeah, it's not really Ableton Live, I don't think, but that was strange. So what we're going to do when we get back online is we're going to do a quick save of what we've got. And yes, then we'll get stuck in. So let's get rid of that. Okay, so file, save. Let's Dub Tech no stream. Not going to send it there. Let's say for the moment we put a desktop in here and we'll save it there. Yeah, the joy is all right. So that is good. Let's see what's going to happen here if I try routing that there. That's a bit better. Turn that on, put it to in. Okay, so we seem to be okay again. Don't know why that crashed, but I will need to restore my audio. So just give me a very quick second here. We will, in theory, be back in action. All right, so let's try that again. So capturing the chords from the drift. Yeah, Adrian Dantes, good suggestion. But we're back in action. Generally, it's a short hiccup. Still don't understand what happens with those, particularly as they don't happen in my own time. It only happens in the stream, so I guess that points in one direction, that it's streaming related rather than Ableton itself. Right, that's plenty of that, because as you can see, once we've got that captured, it's enough. There's the chord progression effectively just repeating itself over and over, right? So we really only need one of those in a moment. And what I'm thinking to do with that, so let's say that we just copy a duplicate of that down, and we're going to name that the original. Thankfully, I mean, it shouldn't be that way, but thankfully, as I've had a few crashes while streaming, I can get it back online pretty fast, but it's still an annoyance that shouldn't happen. All right, so let's say we just loop up one of the chord progressions like so, and we're going to crop it. And there we have the chords. And on this, what I'm now thinking to do is grab another instrument. Let's have wavetable maybe this time. Instrument, come on Heath, wake up, wake up. There we go, over here. Of course, that's going to sound the same. That's not what I want at the moment. I'm going to grab an arpeggio and pop that onto this, and I'm going to arpeggiate these chords. And I don't want the MIDI anymore coming in here, so that's kind of important. So I don't want this MIDI in anymore, and I don't. We'll just start a new track because it's kind of, I should have switched that input over a moment ago. So let's just do it a little bit different. We'll just get rid of that track and we'll do again everything on this one, on this fresh one. Arp, wavetable, because I had some automation that carried over from not switching off the input as well. So now we should be back to where I wanted to be a moment ago. Let's try turning these into legato. Now, I'm doing dub techno here. We're not trying to make trance or a melodic progressive track, but this will make sense in a moment. I'm just trying to take those chords and kind of work with them, right? So we're kind of arpeggiating them for a moment. That's what I'm doing only. And now what I'm going to do, open up a new MIDI track, fingers crossed, no crash. I'm going to turn that to in, and I'm going to ask that to listen to wavetable 4, arm it, and record this arpeggio now into there. We'll run that for a little bit. And actually, I also want a bit of a different arpeggio. So let's try converge, diverge, up and down. Let's hear what we're going to record, because I was just getting a standard up here, which is okay. We might keep that clip, put it down. It's one version. We could also do this in real time, but let's just have a second listen. As I said, if you are tuning into the stream now and you're thinking, what's he doing? That's not sounding like Dub Techno, bear with me. It will make sense in a little bit, hopefully. All right, so I kind of like the random other on the ARP. So now we're going to record that. And as it's random, we'll let it run for a bit, because as you can see, it's capturing some different ideas here. All right, that will do. So we've captured a bit of that. So this track now is like an auxiliary track. It's not really, we'll use it, but we'll turn off the arpeggio, and we're going to take our chords that we printed there, the ones that we made legato that I chopped out of here. So my kind of way of working generally is preserving what I had before. So here's the original. If we want to go back there, then I've got the legato now of it, which all could be interesting to reuse or do something. So we're kind of resampling a bit here. So now we've got this. And the idea here would be a little bit just to try and find a little motive in here, something like a little sequence out of this big sequence that's going to happen not all the time. So let's say that we just loop 5 bars here, and we kind of find what we like about this pattern. And we could also be in this loop or this loop, you know, or a smaller loop somewhere along here. So I'm looking for just a little bit of a motive of sorts. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take out could even be that, right? So we might start with that, but as you can see, this is a very good reason for doing this, right? Because I was just looking for a pattern within a pattern, and by doing what we're doing, we're giving ourselves in the bank all these variations and possibilities of changing up. Later in the track, we could copy another section over here, make a new motive. So this is just the bare bones at the moment of a new motive idea. Norman, very good afternoon to you. Dub Techno stream today, and we're just working on a new little bit to go with our chords, taking an ARP and turning it into a little piece. So let's work on the synth a bit now. That's going to be this little part. And again, I don't want it too trancey, too kind of melodic, so to speak. So let's try, can stay with the sawtooth. Let's make it a bit hollow. Let's get this moving a bit. we're getting something here. Norman, love dub, yes. Dotted notes and delays are dub's best friend, also creating an ever-evolving reverb. Indeed, it's a great genre, as I said, to work with and learn about playing with space. Not only what the notes are doing, because in this case, not a lot, it's a lot about what the effects are doing and filling the space around the notes. So we're not going to, as I said, build this track up with many tracks. We're working with minimal elements and turning it into some kind of very nice, dubbed out, kind of cool listening experience. Right, so we need to work on this sound a bit, of course. So let's have into the effects now, bit of echo. I'm going to boost the input. I'm going to go ping pong. Sounds to me like we can come down in pitch, I feel. Let's have a look. Actually, that could be cool to go out of scale as well, but maybe I'll just pitch it down a little bit on the synth. Right, let's get a bit of roar in here. So I think we're getting a vibe, we're cooking along here. So let's have another MIDI track. And let's have another dub chord if we can fit another one in here. Dub Techno, the Orphic Experience of Sound. Good book, explains Dub Techno. Nice, I don't know that one. I will just take a screenshot of that. Thanks for sharing that with us. I shall check that out. Always interested in reading, learning, and yeah, Sounds good. All right, let me just do a bit of housekeeping here. And by the way, thanks for your blank poster music, as I said, suggestion about the Discord. You are right, as I said, I'm open to suggestions. I do have one, as I said, it's private. I just need to say yay or nay as to whether Discord is the right place for us to all get together. I was thinking about, as I said, making a little forum or a community space where we can get and talk with each other, because I really like this. This means a lot to me that you guys speak with each other and girls and talk and share and learn off each other as much as you're here in the stream with me. We're trying to build something here that helps us become better music producers, and learning off each other is learning from everybody. We're all students in the game here, I as much as anybody. All right, so sorry, I've just lost my way there for a second. So we've got the raw in there. I was doing housekeeping, that's what I was doing. So this, I'm going to call this the ARP. But like I wanted to point out, it's an ARP, but it wasn't about, as I said, jumping in here and going, oh, it's turned into trance or melodic techno. We're kind of trying to keep it nice and analog and crunchy and stuff. And I need to actually want to get a bit more crunch into this sound if I can, this ARP. LTC Sound Labs, good afternoon. I use Discord as a landing pad for my show. I highly recommend. Thank you very much. Appreciate your suggestion. Yeah, as I said, I've kind of set it all up, but then I ummed and ahed about whether it was the right place for me and you guys. So maybe we'll have a little bit of noise. Okay, let's try sneak in another chord in here. Why not? Let's be greedy. Don't want to take away from anything we've already got here, but Hi Alex Moreno, nice to have you here. Very warm welcome. Thanks for your subbing, and great to hear you're loving the dub vibes as well. Let's keep it going. Thinking about turning this into a poly where it wasn't triggering the same as everything else, but it's very raw at the moment, by the way, guys, far from being anything special just yet. So let's try a bit of gated delay here, because that could be really fun actually. One that I think is a bit of a sleeper in Ableton is this gated delay. Sort of came somewhere in 11 or 12, and it's really nice because you can get kind of reverse steps in here, so it goes kind of forwards and backwards, and you can do lots of, again, randomizing and turning it into your own custom kind of delays. Let's try a preset or two, because I think there's one that I quite like. It's the Euclidean. I've also noted this one, I think. Yeah, so you get these kind of little reverse. But, yeah, I'm going to just roll through the presets a little bit. Nice. That's kind of what I'm looking for. So we've got a nice, the blue steps are kind of reversing what's happening in here. So we're going to do the same trick with the EQ8, I think, here. Actually, what we can do, well, no, because the other one's got LFO action already on it. Custom LFO. Delay before is better. Let's get this one moving around our head a bit. Maybe we'll slow it down, have it happen every couple of bars, every 3 bars, 4 bars. Quicker. Yes, the reversing on the gated delay, don't sleep on that, because it's a really nice way to kind of create something unusual. Norman, spring reverb is big in dub just because of the era. There was a lot of secondhand spring reverb about in the 90s. Yeah, we could actually spring reverb this particular sound. Kind of hearing something here I want to try. So let's try that with the spring reverb. Let's get the hybrid on. Berlin Spring, we've got to love something from Berlin. Sounds dub techno to me. That's nice though. Yeah, I like that. Good shout, Norman. We're in with the spring. Went down the mine hole there. I'm sort of into the vibe now. I think we're flowing nicely with the idea here. So what could we also do here? And there's lots of, like, this would be the kind of track as well where there'd be a lot of automation, lots of things moving around, little nuances, but I think already musically we've got enough. So maybe a bit of percussion, maybe a bit of a field recording. Could be fun here to play around with something follow actions wise. It's why I kind of have this little column over here. It was a bit of a note to thyself of some ideas that I just jotted down here. So we could have a field recording maybe in the background here bubbling away, or noise. That's a very much a dub techno thing as well, is to have lots of texture and noise. So we could use synths to do that, but we could also grab a bit of some noise from, yeah, I mean, meld could be good to do that. I often use meld, so maybe I'll put a meld in the mix for a noise layer. Well, let's try for an organic noise layer. So I'm going to put field up here in the search and see what we get, if we get a sample that we can use here. And I'm also looking for a sample. Yeah, something like the water drops sounded pretty cool. So we'll put that one in for the moment. That one's also pretty cool. These are just samples of field recordings. Lots and lots of ones there. So what we could actually do is make a bunch of these into a follow actions actually while thinking about it. So just picking a couple here. Thanks very much, Norman. Really appreciate it. So what have I got here out of these samples? I've got 43 and 41 already in the mix. Let's throw that up. Even that noise there, let's have that. That's pretty cool. Noise. Lots of noise, but rather than just plonking this down here, we're going to try and create something a little bit different. So that's probably enough already. Let me just go back there. I want that 30 as well. And what we're going to do, let's make some extras in here as well. So let's say we put this guy, duplicate number 30. Let's give it another color, something like this. And in that one, let's loop up something small, like just a bit of silence almost. So when it jumps to that, it's just going to jump to that. And we'll have a few of those. And then what we could try, as I said, is let's get these open, bring this down, hit all those up, and then get ourselves over to follow action and say that we'd like that group to be follow action vibes here. Norman, have you thought about doing a review show where we send? I have. I did actually do one of, well, feedback, no. So what I've done so far, I did one episode of working on a subscriber's song. So my idea was for one of the sort of episodes was to take a look at you know, sending in a track that you were stuck on or weren't sure about how to take it forwards. I did a track, it's called, the thumbnail is Elevate, working on a subscriber's song, and I took a friend's of the channel's techno track and kind of showed how he could improve it and worked on it in real time. So again, thanks for your suggestions, keep those coming in. If you'd like that I do a feedback one, if that gets a thumbs up, obviously it's a great suggestion, Norman. Then yeah, I'd be up for that, and you can send your music in with others, and I can go through how I think you can kind of improve it. So that's a one vote. Let's see if we can get a few more people who'd be willing to share their music in a stream like that, and then we can absolutely go forwards with that idea. I'm here for you guys. All right, so what we want to do here, we've got our follow action. We don't want next, we kind of want either other or any. and that's going to be applied to all of these clips now. And we could do some things where we, go in, like the difference between other and any. One of them can play the same sample twice in the follow actions, and one does not play twice. It will jump. I think other jumps to any of them, and other can play itself again. So when you're looking at these different follow actions, what they mean, right? So you can play around with that, and also in each of these we can do some fun stuff, like let's go through a few of these, and similarly we can sort of say unlink it, and let's have like just a couple of beats. So we want 1 and 2. Let's turn on legato. Actually, I'm just going to zero these guys out. There we go, that's better. And let's say we just have quarter note literally in here with legato. That should play around in different sections of this clip. And let's loop this one over here. We're going to make a real random selection here. We're not even listening to what's going to happen. We're going to loop that. We can also reverse stuff. So let's reverse this one. There it is, and it's looped with reverse. You can have crazy amounts of fun with it. Let's have a listen now, because otherwise it might sound horrible and we don't know what we're doing. Excellent, Alex. That's great. So we've got 2 votes there for, I'm taking it what you would like is to send your music in and me give live feedback in a show in a couple of hours. Is that what you're, both yourself, Alex, and Normal Norman are speaking of? You'd like it to be brought up and reviewed and spoken about how you could improve it and things like that? Is that what you're looking for? Blank post the music. Awesome. This is great, guys. So it looks like we're doing that in a second. So we might need to come up with a bit of a plan on how we're going to execute that. So I'm thinking about it as we go along here. I don't know why that one was so loud, but it was really loud for some reason. But this is kind of doing this. Sounds a bit like the toilet being flushed. Just going to bring the volume down on some of these louder ones. Also, you could make that a super smaller loop. So let's do that. Let's just have something like almost silence on that one, or this little glitch up here. Let's do that. So as you can see, I could have perhaps done a bit more of this before I started the follow actions, but the idea here is I'm not going to leave it like it is. I guess I should explain, but as you can see, it can be a fun thing. What I really want to do with this is set up an audio track and just record that essentially for a while, and then we have this kind of custom texture layer that we can loop and find a section in. So really that's all I wanted to do here. So, but as you can see, I could prepare this a lot better than I have. Let's say it's very rough and raw and ready, but let's say we go for a little bit of recording of it. Oh, that was kind of nice. I like what happened there. Perfect. So just at the end there, it kind of almost did what I was looking for. And as I said, you can set these up and prepare this a little bit better so that all the levels of these are doing what you want, and legato and making little short sections so it jumps from one to the other a little bit quicker. But I'm going to switch that off, and I think I would just use something for the moment out of this, like this little loop kind of over here type of idea. So I'm just going to stop for a second, have a little read in here. So we've got some votes here. Most people have Discord, and you can send it to Discord, then you can access it your end. Yeah, understand, because I was going to say otherwise we'd be working with Dropbox or yeah, just sending it to me via email. So I think what I can suggest for now, as I said, as I'm going to wrap this stream up soonish, for all of those of you who've commented, as I said, I appreciate an awful lot, and this is fantastic. I'm going to screenshot the chats, and I'll work on it, right, so that the next time when we're in the live stream next Sunday, I'll have a solution there, and we can just sort of say, okay, do it this way, right? Because I think today I'm not kind of quite organized to receive your music yet and do it all nice and professionally and everything, but I love the idea, and I love that you guys suggested it, because, you know, as I said, I'm here to help in the best way I can. So as I said, I will have a look at the ways that I think makes the most sense. Perhaps it's Discord then, and we put the Discord online and we get that rolling. But yeah, I think for today, I don't have the solution in my hands, but yeah, but we can, as I said, I can give you my response next Sunday in the stream and say, right, send your music here, and then we can work on when we're going to do it as well. Hopefully that helps. Private SoundCloud links work, so you don't have to store the files, maybe using a Google form. Yeah, I mean, I definitely work with SoundCloud, so I could easily receive private SoundCloud links. The only thing with that is like streaming them online. So I guess if I'm just listening to the WAV file to your track and then making suggestions from there, then SoundCloud works. You know, but you could also send me the file, it's okay, and then maybe it would be good to have the audio and I can put them all into a project. I've seen others obviously do those kind of streams, and they've had all the tracks in the Ableton Live, you know, a list of audio tracks, and then just going through them. So maybe that would be easier, because then I can also loop the track in a section and speak about the break or something like that. So rather than streaming it from a browser and from SoundCloud, that probably wasn't what you were meaning, but as I said, I'm thinking about it as I'm going along here. All right, so I've looped up this little bit of audio. We're going to take that away from being an input. This idea was cool. I think it just needs a bit more work on it, rather than sort of the rough and ready idea I have from it here. But the concept of follow actions and putting lots of noise in here, or different samples, and then recording it, gives us lots of options again here for finding little custom loops, and we could chop this up and use it along the track in sections. I think it could be really interesting for a bit of background kind of texture. Cool. All right, so let's hit play here and see what we've got. So what I've chosen sounds like this on its own. Kind of a little groovy, little interesting noise loop. Let's kind of control it a bit. if we don't want that glitch, it could just be this. It's quite nice and rhythmic. Super original, right? But I kind of want it more in the background. And let's say we do a fast sidechain on this. I'm going to use one thing outside of Ableton Live on this, which is going to be a bit of kickstart here. And I'm going to set that up to listen to the kick. So it grooves. Try this kick. Let's duplicate that over the track. Try that again. And I'm going to try, let's go back in time a bit here to the days, and let's do a little save while we're here, because we've got this far and we don't want any shenanigans to happen like it did previously. So let's update that. And then I'm thinking sometimes it's nice to pay tribute to where a lot of these genres, such as Basic Channel, who I mentioned at the start of the stream, where the origins of this sounds, well, first we've got Jamaica and dub reggae, but the origins of dub techno, let's say, and some of the artists' rhythm and sound and Basic Channel and 909 kicks were 100% part of a lot of that music. So let's try one of these with a 909. Got plenty here for sure. Samples. Let's have a listen to the track and then try and pick which one fits best. Check out the loop would help. Let's turn off a bit of this musical stuff for a sec. Maybe let's try this. So we've still got the drum synth kick, which I really, really like, but just trying it with a sample instead. I'm sure we can get a beefier. There we go. Give it a bit of 909 vibe. Let's try and bring that up a little bit. That little noise layer, it's pretty cool if we take it out. It's adding some nice texture in there, and it's not just pure texture, it's got some nice little kind of bit of rhythm, bit of percussive sort of vibe to it. So what am I looking for here? I'm looking for the good old drum bass. Now, as this is a sample, we don't know if it's in the key or tuned to the key of our track. Alex, thanks for letting me know that you think that's a great idea. Please correct me, why not kickstart sidechain after the reverb for cleaner sound? Does it matter or not really? If you want the reverb, if the reverb's on that particular track and you would like the tail of that reverb to be sidechained, absolutely. That particular sound, in this case, I've kind of, sometimes the sidechain goes first just because I was looking for the cut, but you're right, we could have it post right after including the reverb. In this case, it's kind of leading the sidechain sound already to the EQ, to the reverb, but it's a good question or a good thing to bring up because it could live either way. It's going to be a bit different. Here we're sort of telling the EQ and reverb you're already sidechained, right? So I kind of went over the noise and I've sidechained this loop to go with the kick. If we go here after, then we're also sidechaining post the reverb. But in theory, if you think about it, the reverb's currently following the sidechain sounds and following the EQ. But if you're ever unsure, you can always just option drag, put another one there, and then you can control it after as well. So absolutely, it's the same reason we use multiple EQs. Here we're now also sidechaining the reverb, or we switch that off and now we're saying dry sound all the way through the EQ, all the way through the reverb, and now we're sidechaining the tail of the reverb as well as the dry sound. So I hope that helps. Great thinking, because it can be either or both. It's really up to what you're wanting to happen, okay? Let's come back to this kick and let's just see if we can see what is the key of the kick, because it's a sample and our notes are, well, they should be up on C3, so they're just sitting in a neutral position in the MIDI. It'd be nice to know what this 909 sample is in terms of its pitch or frequency. So I'm going to use an EQ, hover over that nice little hump there, and I see G sharp 0, and we've got G0 in our track. I don't think G sharp is in F, so let's have a quick look. F is, but G sharp isn't in our scale, right? So what we're going to do there then is just bring that down a semitone to cope with that. So there we go, one semitone down. Now we've got a G kick that's in our scale and we've tuned our kick. Clean sound doesn't really fit with Dub Techno, exactly right. That's why I'm kind of trying to add crunch and grit and all those kind of things to this track, including the 909 edition here, is trying to get a little bit of that vintage vibe, that organic kind of texture. So our kick is now in tune. Let's hear what that sounds like compared to the, well, it's a choice, right? I haven't changed the envelope here though. I quite like the synthesized kick though. So I think I'd be going with the synthesized kick for the moment. I just wanted to try the sample. So that's what it sounds like if we put the kickstart afterwards, and you can see here actually in this great display of the kickstart, you can kind of see the kick and then where the sample would be. So the sample's kind of overlapping a little bit. So when we sidechain, if we go extreme over here, you can see all the kick and all the tail, and the samples kind of only here. Whereas with the sidechain like that, they're going to overlap a lot more. But now we're capturing the tail of the reverb. I kind of think my ear says that I prefer kind of that it captured the sort of dry sample, and I'm leaving the reverb tail to kind of do its thing rather than also making that pump. But perhaps you're also thinking, like as I said, it can absolutely work. It's a really good way to think. Also, it's often a great thing that if we were using the send and returns, you could put your sidechain directly after the reverb here, and that would mean that all your reverb tails will groove with whatever you've sidechained it to. So I understand it's a very, very good thing to think about. In this case, I've kind of controlled it before it arrived to the reverb, if that makes sense. So it's a different signal flow, but it's purely based on what I wanted sound-wise, right? It's going to turn off my follow actions over here. Just have a look at our levels. So we can come up a bit. I'm going to just take my 909 kick away for a moment. Out the way. We can come up. I don't want my kick over. Hang on. Steady. Let's go back there. Back one more move. There we go, down to there. Things got out of hand there for a second. Let me just see if I'm back on track. So with the kick, I'm going to boost the volume of that a little bit different to everything else. So everything else can come up. So limiter off, we're now just running on the mix levels. Bit of DJ filter action here on the main master track, main track. So let's have a little recap of what we've done. For kicks, do you always use the DS kick, blank poster music? I don't always, but I do like it. I think it's a very, very cool synthesized kick drum, and it's very easy to use. It's very intuitive how to use it. I think it needs a bit of processing, but I do like that it's a synthesized kick, and that means it's very easy to tune to your track. The pitch of it, it's very easy to adjust the decay and the envelope. You can add a click here as well if you want a transient, and of course we can always group it, put it in a little instrument rack, and then we can layer it with other sounds. So for example, if it's lacking something that you feel it's missing, you know, we could very easily put it, as I've done here, into its own little rack. And then we could say, go and grab ourselves, as an example, a shaker. We want something just like that. And we could drop that into that rack there, and that could add our own, we could start turning it into our own little custom kind of kick, where it's now got the layer of a shaker for a bit of a new transient. Right? So I think it's a really good starting place, and it makes it really quite easy to kind of, you know, come up with your own custom kicks. And there's your synthesized kick, nice and easy to tune, and then you can add an organic layer like this. And of course there's all the fun stuff that I would process it with after here, and I think Alex has been suggesting some options there. Of course, yeah, decapitator, amazing drum bus, EQ. We can definitely fatten this goose up for Christmas without any problems at all, and turn it into a nice, you know, more crunchy kick if that's what we want. But it's already a pretty tasty kick, so I do like using it. That was the long-winded answer, but it's not always. Sometimes I use a sample, sometimes I use the DS, and sometimes I'll use Operator. Makes really nice kicks as well. So let's have a little recap, or just kind of clear out what we've got here, what we're keeping, what we're not. So let's say we start with where we began, which was just the conversation between the bass and the kick, which now it's got a shaker on it, which kind of like. It's giving it a nice little bit of dirt. And then I think I built next the hi-hat for a little bit of groove. And that's got this really, I think, cool little idea for you guys and girls for a little turnaround, where I've made that kind of, sounds like another percussion track by pitching one of the hi-hats down an octave. So we get that little nice metallic kind of fill at the end. Then a clap, super simple. Somewhere along the way there was a 909 right added. So that's our main groove with the bass. And then this chord 1, this was the first sort of real dubby element that said, hey, hang on, we're working with a bit of dub here. And it's this kind of rhythmical pattern on the G, but what's important is it's got a chord MIDI device giving it different chords. It's even got some chants on a third interval happening every now and then. It's made with drift. It's got filter delay, EQ, LFO moving that EQ around, and some reverb as well. So it's got a little bit of sound enhancement, we should say. And then I printed the chords because we couldn't see the chords here. We only see the rhythmic pattern. I printed them, and then the printed chords, then I turned them into an arpeggio, and then I printed the arpeggio and came up with this little riff from it. And that's a wavetable with some reverb and some echo and raw. And then another wavetable, more recent, which is another couple of chords with, again, reverb, panning, delay, and that nice little reversed gated delay, which is this layer. And then finally we just did a quick follow actions and recorded this little noise layer here to get stuck in with some nice, again, little organic textures and noise in there. That for me isn't the final product. I would like to set that recording up a bit more, do a nice long take, find some different slices, but I would use something like that to give again, some nice character in the background there. I think that's a really good part of dub. Now, what else could we add here? Perhaps some vocal effects could be interesting. A little bit of bringing out the granulator or something, do some kind of weird alien kind of robot-y vocals could be nice. I don't think it needs any more musical elements, and maybe some percussion here or there could be interesting here as well, like some more hits, a bit like that hi-hat does. So overall, we end up with, in a couple of hours from scratch, this bad boy. And there's lots and lots of automation, so if I was now thinking about this as a track in the future, Yeah, so there's lots of little things that would be moving around. I'm moving the release on this envelope of the wavetable that plays that chord. I was moving some of the filter cutoffs. That's how we get this, you know, into a really nice sort of 6-7 minute journey out of this loop. You know, we'd be bringing things in and out, and there'd be a ton of automation, just doing lots of nice little subtle kind of detailed work, also feedbacks on delays and reverbs and dry wets and sweeping all that in and out. I think it would be not really too much trouble to turn this into a nice kind of 6-7 minute dub techno track for a DJ set or two. So maybe we should do that. Maybe she would take this loop and keep going forwards with it and turn it into a tune. If you'd like to see that, let me know, and then we can, you know, bring it into another stream and do that. So I'm going to kind of wrap things up here. It's been great to have you in the chat with me in the stream, especially those of you who've joined in and dropped a comment. So just looking back here, thanks a lot, Adrian Dantas, as always. It's been great to have you on board. Not sure if you're still there, but great to have you early on. And as always, appreciate your comments. Blank Poster Music, same. Great to have you in there. I didn't review that sound, but as I said, it's still in the back of my head. I haven't forgotten you. At some point, perhaps when I'm doing a synthesis thing, I can go in and point that out and then make sure I mention you when I'm showing that particular technique. But I do think I can hear what it is that you wanted to understand about that sound in that particular track. Beautiful track as well, by the way. DJ Norman, as always, a pleasure to have you on board. Also nice to meet LTC Sound Labs. Alex Moreno, great to have had you in the chat as well. And thanks for your suggestions. So it looks like I need to get my act together for a Discord perhaps. As I said, I have it all, the framework and everything done, just haven't launched it. But it seems that some of you like the idea of that. And then I'm going to come with a suggestion of how you can share your music with me. I'll give you a way to do that, and then we can also pull up a feedback stream on the channel where we go through those of you who've submitted music. That sounds like a great thing to do. So if you are watching this back on repeat, not in real time, and you want to be a part of that, then comment below the video. Let me know that you're on board. You want to send your music for a feedback stream or review stream. As I said, it just helps me, gives me the kick in the pants to go and get that up and running, and then we do it all together. And also the community platform, because it's not like I didn't think about that. As I said, I was just thinking, is Discord for me? Because at the end of the day, someone has to take care of it and monitor it, and with busy lives, taking on another platform isn't always the easiest thing to do. So I was thinking, could I bring that community to something I'm already doing? So, but as I said, really appreciate your thoughts and suggestions, all taken on board. We're going to do these things that you've spoken about here. Just obviously I need a moment's time to sort of figure out the best way to do it. So join me next Sunday in the stream. I'll have an answer for that, how we're going to do it, where you're going to send your music. So stay tuned for that. Thanks as always for joining me today. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of Dub Techno and you found it interesting, beneficial, learned some things along the way, lots of things, a few things. It's been great to have you. I wish you an amazing weekend. I'll drop a link to a video that I think is a great follow on from this one that I would suggest you watch next. If you've enjoyed this video, I'll pop a card when I can at the end of the video here. Go check that video out. And as I said, we'll see you 3 p.m. Central Eastern Standard Time next Sunday. Let's do it all again. Take care. Great to have been hanging with you all. Bye for now. See you later. Take care. Happy creating. Ciao.